again, it's Heather Vegan Moon, and this is actually my second video of the day. Well, it's after midnight, so I guess it would be the 22nd today. And I learned about the information in this video a while ago, and it's been on my mind a lot, and I think it's really important. I think this is actually going to be one of the most important videos I've ever made because it's one of the most important issues of the human race, kind of. So, yeah, let's get into it. And basically, it's about, I watched a video from, I think his name is Joe, at thebesttransformation.com. And he is a high-carb, raw-4 person, a YouTuber, and he's actually a really cool musician and makes these really cool videos on YouTube, and I think his channel's Best Transformation or The Best Transformation, something like that. So, yeah. I think his name is Joe. Anyways, so he made a video called Why Restrictive Eating Makes You Fat. And it's about, the Minnesota Starvation Experiment. And the report was called Biology of Human Starvation. And it's by the University of Minneapolis in 1950. And the Minnesota Starvation Experiment, I'm basically going to be just saying everything he said, reading the bullets that he had in his video, which sounded like direct quotes or paraphrasing the actual study. So anyways, the Minnesota Starvation Experiment, I believe, proves why every diet we've ever done fails, and also explains how we slowly gain weight over the years, and we keep trying to lose weight, and we bounce back and gain more weight after we're done and all that. Anyways, so it was done November 19th, 1944 through December 20th, 1945. It was designed to determine the physiological and psychological effects of healthy men on severe and prolonged dietary restriction and the effectiveness of dietary rehab strategies. The control period was 12 weeks. It was 3,200 calories a day. The semi-starvation period was 24 weeks and was 1,560 calories a day, which is a very common number for many people who are trying to lose weight. And restricted rehab period was 12 weeks, divided into 4 groups of 8 men. Each group was receiving a different calorie level. And the unrestricted rehab period was 8 weeks, and the final which was the final rehab, unrestricted in intake amount and content, but carefully recorded and monitored. What the study actually was studying was dieting and restrictive eating. Our bodies can't tell the difference between starving by choice or involuntary starvation as like a war victim. So they were trying to figure out how to refeed Europe after the war, in a way. And the men lived in the lab, and everything they ate and did was closely monitored. And they were also doing daily exercise of walking 3 miles a day. So the 1,500 calorie diet and 3 miles a day sounds like pretty much every diet plan out there, from Atkins to low carb to paleo, Weight Watchers, pretty much anything, or it's even worse than that. And like a lot of the, I've been interested in weight loss my whole life since I was a teenager for like over a decade, and I've always been obsessed with like fitness magazines, beauty magazines, looking on the internet, looking at anorexia, bulimia websites, calorie counting websites like Weight Watchers, MyFitnessPal. There's a bunch of them. And, what was that one that I was on? Oh, it's not even that popular anymore. But you could have like blogs with pictures, kind of like a MySpace, but it was more underground, and it was really popular in the anorexia community. And the blogs consistently contained like intake, output, exercise, and most of the girls were 1,000 calories or less and over-exercising, and everything they talked about in their blogs and on like MyFitnessPal feeds and blogs, in the forums, on the Raw Till 4 forums, all of this, everything everybody goes through that sucks about dieting, any type of eating disorder, it's all related to this study, and this study explains it. Anyways, I'm going to finish reading this before I run out of time. So, Dr. Keyes, which was the scientist who did this study, and I guess he's well respected and all that, he chronicled how the men did during the 6 months of dietary interventions and for up to a year afterward. This study scientifically defined for the first time the Starvation Syndrome. As the men lost weight, their physical endurance dropped by half and their strength by 10%. So typical. The men's resting metabolic rates declined by 40%. Their heart volume shrank by 20%. Their pulses slowed and their body temperatures dropped. They complained of feeling cold, tired, hungry, having trouble concentrating, and impaired judgment and comprehension, dizzy spells, visual disturbances, ringing in their ears, tingling, numbing of their extremities, stomach aches and headaches, trouble sleeping, hair thinning, their skin growing dry and thin. Their sexual dysfunction and testes size were reduced, and they lost all interest in sex. They had every physical indication of accelerated aging. Holy shit. This was induced by restrictive eating. Healthy men, healthy weights, psychologically sound, developing anorexia, and all of the crazy shit that goes along with it. And, yeah. So, maybe it's all actually the symptoms of a natural response. Well, it is. Psychological changes that were brought on by dieting, even among those robust men with only moderate calorie restriction, were the most profound and unexpected. So much so that Dr. Keyes called it semi-starvation neurosis. The men became nervous, anxious, apathetic, withdrawn, impatient, self-critical, distorted body image, feeling overweight, moody, emotional, depressed. A few men even mutilated themselves. They lost all ambition and feelings of adequacy. I mean, Does this not sound like the anorexia stories you hear on the news and on those special shows and in the newspapers and all that, or in the books? I don't know, whatever. They neglected their appearance, became loners. They lost their sense of humor and love. They became obsessed with food, thinking, talking, reading about it constantly. Developed developed weird eating rituals, began hoarding things, consumed vast amounts of coffee, tea, chewed gum incessantly, up to 40 packs a day. Binge eating episodes became a problem. It's classic anemia. Anorexia, bulimia. The act of restricting food and the constant hunger made food the most important thing in one's life, said one of the participants. These experiments are familiar to those who have spent their whole life dieting. Amen. Many symptoms once thought to be features of anorexia nervosa are actually a normal biological response of undernutrition and restricted eating. This is what's wrong with society. We are all undercarved. Literally. We're all underfed, undernourished, undercarbed. All participants were tested as psychologically sound and developed all of these symptoms when calorie restriction was introduced. Men were allowed to eat again. When men were allowed to eat again, they had insatiable appetites, yet never felt full. Classic. Even 5 months later, some continued to have dysfunctional eating, although most were finally regaining some normalization of their eating. Regained weight, suppressed metabolism, and energy levels returned, although 3 months after ending the diet, none of the men had regained their former physical capacity. Dr. Keyes chronicled how the men did during the 6 months of dietary interventions and for up to a year. Oops. Next page. I wrote it all down because it's just easier for me. While it seemed like the men were overeating, Dr. Keyes said their bodies needed an inordinate amount of calories for their tissues to be rebuilt. Our experiments have shown that in an adult male, In an adult man, no appreciable rehabilitation can take place on a diet of 2,000 calories a day. The proper level is more like 4,000 calories a day for some months. The character of this rehabilitation diet is also important, but unless calories are abundant, then extra proteins, vitamins, and minerals are of little value. It's quality also, not the quantity. It's quality, it's not the quantity. It's the food, people. They weren't really overeating. It was a biological normal effect of hunger and weight loss. The men regained their original weights plus 10%. So you know how they say you can improve your health by losing 20% of your weight, and then you decide to do that by restrictive eating and overexercising? Well, plan on making that another 30% you have to lose in a year later. The regained weight was disproportionately fat. True that. And their lean body mass recovered much more slowly. With unlimited food and unrestricted eating, their weights plateaued, and finally, about 9 months later, most had naturally returned to their initial weights without trying, giving scientists the first demonstrations that each body has a natural genetic set point, whether it be fat or thin. Despite the fear that with unrestrained eating, everyone would continue to grow larger, it isn't true. Despite the fear that with unrestrained eating, everyone would